Hello, everybody. We're back for this week's fight card, which is Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. And we're going to break this card down starting right now. Let me pull this up full screen. All right, so the first fight of the night is between Jamie Lynn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. Close fight. Jamie Lynn Horth is 6-1. Petrovic is 7-1. They're both very similar heights. 5'7" for Lynn Horth, 5'8" for Petrovic. And reach, only a 2-inch reach advantage for Petrovic, and pretty much no reach advantage in the legs for Lynn Horth, like an inch, not even an inch. So, close fight, again, with a lot of these women's fights. I think that the safe bet is probably go to a decision either way. But I am going to pick Petrovic, and there's really no reason why I'm picking Petrovic. It's just kind of I'm taking one side of the equation here, and I'm picking Petrovic. By decision, she'll probably outstrike her, or she's going to lose 29-28 by getting taken down and held in half guard and full guard. So, I'm going Petrovic by decision here. Again, though, really, really close fight, hard to pick. So, moving on up, the prelims, we have Chad Eneliger. How the fuck do you pronounce his last name? Versus Cody Gibson. I know I've seen him fight, but I can't remember how to pronounce his fucking last name. Chad Aneliner. I don't know if the H is silent. Anyways, we have this matchup at bantamweight. Both of these guys are a bit older, 37 years old, which is old for a bantamweight. Probably at the tail end of their careers. If you look at their records, recent records here, we have, let's look at Cody Gibson. Let's look at his record first. So his recent fights have been against Brian Kelleher in July, which he got a submission, first round. And then before that, he lost to Miles Johns and then Brad Katona. Now, the Miles Johns loss, not too bad, but losing to Brad Katona, not the greatest look. And then before that, he fought Ray Borg and lost a decision. This wasn't even in the UFC, by the way. He's fought in the UFC before, a long time ago. Cody Gibson, like a decade ago. But, yeah, and then if we go to Chad's record, his last win was over Charlalampos Grigoriou, and then before that he lost to Jose Johnson, and then, fuck pronouncing that name, but I believe this is Alichi, no, this is not Alichi Lang, is it? No, it's not. But anyways, both of these guys older, towards the end of their careers at bantamweight. I'm going to go Cody Gibson, though. I think Cody Gibson, we're going to see a bit of a difference in the wrestling, and I think he's going to be able to use his wrestling, use his pace and his grappling to just wear Chad out and probably get a decision, maybe a submission. I could see like a third round, maybe late second round submission, but probably Cody Gibson by decision. Pretty much just moving forward, setting a pace, clinching them, getting his takedowns, and just being the busier fighter. I think Cody Gibson's going to get this one done by likely decision, but like I said, I can maybe see him get in a submission at some point. But I'm going Cody Gibson on this one. So moving on up, we have Sarahi City versus Garrett Armfield. Sarahi City versus Garrett Armfield. This one was a tough one for me to pick. I was rewatching some footage of both guys, and while CD is a bit, he could be a bit hittable because he stands straight up and he doesn't really move his head a whole lot. He is tough, he is durable. If he does get hurt, he has ability to kind of recover and bounce back, and he does set a really high pace on the feet with his striking. And I haven't seen too much of his grappling, but it doesn't seem too bad. It's not like guys are just taking him down at will, so that's a good sign. As far as Garrett Armfield goes, his biggest weakness has probably been his submission defense. And then outside of that, he's a pretty good boxer. He's got decent hands. He can wrestle a bit. He's got some grappling from the top position. This one was a tough one, but I think I'm going Sarahi City, probably by decision. I think that the output's going to be the big difference, and also the height and reach. I could see that giving Garrett Armfield some trouble. And I don't know. I just don't see Garrett Armfield being able to put together enough strikes to be able to hurt CD, to be honest with you. So I'm going CD by decision, possibly a TKO, but I don't think so. I think Garrett Armfield's pretty tough. I think he's going to be able to withstand the onslaught. But I just think the volume is going to be a little bit too much. So I'm going CD by decision. Maybe 29-20. I could see Garrett Armfield stealing around here, but I think CD is going to definitely win the second and third. So I'm going CD by decision. So moving on up, we got Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. I think I'm going Romanov, but I'm not confident because, let me chew this fucking Altoid, because Romanov gasses out, and he just hasn't looked all that great in his recent fights. I mean, mind you, he fought Gelton Almeida, which Almeida was going to win that fight no matter what. Nascimento's nowhere near Almeida's level. So both of these guys are a bit slower. Not the most explosive guys on the feet and their movements and their footwork. Both of them are definitely more grapplers. Nascimento, I would say, is a little more towards jiu-jitsu, whereas Romanov is definitely more towards the wrestling side of things. Romanov, I feel like, will definitely be the better wrestler. 100% he'll be better at getting takedowns. But as far as the actual grappling, once the fight hits the ground, from the top position, Nascimento will probably be a little bit better. He'll probably have a little more control. He'll be a little more patient. Whereas Romanov, he might rush things a bit. On the feet, really, I don't know who to pick on the feet here. Both these guys are just not very good strikers at all. Fuck. You know, I was leaning towards Romanov. But you know what? I think I'm going to go Rodrigo Nascimento by decision here. I could see Romanov winning the first round, ragdolling the fuck out of him, and then just completely gassing out. And then getting taken down himself in the second and third and losing. So I'm going to go Rodrigo Nascimento here by decision. At first I was thinking Romanov, but you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, and I'm not going to trust Romanov's gas tank. Because Nascimento, for what it's worth, a lot of his wins are by decision, where he kind of does, you know, he outgrinds his opponent a little bit. Not the most impressive, you know, fighter, not the most impressive wins, but that style could work against Romanov. And I think we could see Nascimento kind of wear him out and end up winning a decision. So I'm going to go with Rodrigo Nascimento on this one by decision here. So moving on up to the, what is this? No, this is not the main. Is this the main card? Holy shit, I think it is the main card. Jack Shore versus Youssef Zalal. I'm going Youssef Zalal by decision here. I think he's improved a lot since his first run in the UFC. I also don't think Jack Shore is a real featherweight. I think he should be at bantamweight. I don't really like the fact that he's at 145. And, yeah, I'm going to go Zalal by decision. I think he's going to be able to stuff Jack Shore's takedowns. I think that's what Shore is going to try to really rely on, is his grappling, his wrestling. Trying to pin him up against the cage, look for a takedown. But on the feet, I think Zalal's too rangy, he's too quick, and he's just going to pick apart Shore, use his kicks, teep kicks, jab, you know, move around, circle, avoid any big shots, avoid any leg kicks that Jack Shore might try to throw, stuff all the takedown attempts he might try, and even maybe get his own grappling going offensively. So I'm going to go Youssef Zalal here by decision. I just think that he's a little more skilled than Jack Shore. He's an actual real featherweight. I think that's the difference here. The big difference is that Youssef Zalal is a real 145, or Jack Shore is really not. He's a bantamweight that's fighting a featherweight. So I'm going to go Youssef Zalal by decision. I just think he's better. I think he's going to outpoint him, out-technique him, stuff any takedown attempts, and get it done. So moving on up, we have Charles Jourdain making his bantamweight debut against Victor Henry. Another close fight. Victor Henry hasn't been the most active. Jourdain is coming off that first KO loss of his career against Jean Silva. And I kind of like Jourdain at bantamweight. I feel like his frame might be a little bit better as a bantamweight. And, I mean, he's always said he's pretty small for a featherweight. I think he said he was walking around at like 155. which is probably about what most bantamweights are cutting from and probably fighting at in the cage when they're, competing as a bantamweight. So I like the move for Charles Jourdain. And Victor Henry is not a bad underdog here at all. This one's going to be a close fight, but I do feel like the difference here is going to be the pace. Jourdain does fight at a higher pace, and he's a little more active, whereas Victor Henry sometimes gets caught up in these technical kickboxing matches where it's like he's going point for point with you, and I don't know if that's going to work against Jourdain. And I think Jourdain's boxing might be a little more slick, his ability to string together combinations. I think that might be the difference in this one. The grappling, I don't think we're going to see too much grappling in this fight. Both of these guys are decent grapplers, defensively and offensively. I think they're probably relatively around the same level. I don't think we're going to see either guy really dominate there. But on the feet, I do think Jourdain will have a slight advantage with the boxing and, like I said, those long combinations. And I'm going to go Jourdain here. I think there's going to be a lot of decisions on this card. I'm going to go Jourdain by decision. I think Victor Henry is tough enough to stay in there for 3 rounds, but it's going to be a close competitive fight. But I'm going to go Jourdain by decision here, just being the busier, more active fighter, especially with his hands. I think that's going to be the real difference, is just the boxing. So moving on up, we have Ariane Da Silva versus Jasmine Jasudavicius, and this is Ariane Lipski, by the way. The UFC website saying Da Silva, but I think most people know her as Ariane Lipski. This is a fucking really hard fight to pick. This is a really hard fight to pick. I think I'm going to go Jasmine Jasudavicius, though. It's in Canada. And I'm just looking at the recent records here. Fatima Klein, Priscilla Cachoeira. She lost to Tracy Cortez. This is Jasmine Jasudavicius I'm talking about. She beat Miranda Maverick. Yeah, she's beat. I gotta go with Jasmine Jasudavicius here by decision. Close fight, but I'm gonna go Team Canada. With a lot of these women's side, honestly, man, you just have to pick a side. You just have to pick a side. So many of these women's fights are so damn close in odds. Every once in a while, you get one where you're like, oh, that person's gonna win, but you just have to pick a side. So I'm going Team Canada on this one. I think Jasudavicius is going to win. Probably decision, although I could see maybe a submission or a TKO. I could see it happening. But I'm going to go with Jasmine Jasudavicius here. She'll probably mix up some strikes, get some takedowns, work top control, get some ground and pound. Probably end up winning a decision. I could see a ground and pound TKO or maybe a submission from Jasudavicius. But I'm going to go Jasmine Jasudavicius here. Probably by decision more than likely. So moving on up, we have Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. I'm going Aiemann Zahabi on this one. Pedro Munoz, I feel like, is one of those guys that if you have a really good coach and you have, really good game planning, he's kind of a really easy fighter to game plan around. And, he's a tough guy, Pedro Munoz. He's got power. He's got nice low kicks. He can grapple a bit. He's got a nice guillotine. And he is very durable. But Aiemann Zahabi, I feel like, is going to be able to just pick apart him. Use his jab, use his boxing, use his range, and move around and just kind of, force Pedro Munoz to run into some shots, run into the jab, run into the straight. And I don't think Pedro Munoz is going to really out-grapple him. I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to go Aiemann Zahabi, again, by decision here. This is a lot of fucking decision. I don't know if I've had one finish, like just outright one finish on here. So, yeah, I'm going to go Zahabi by decision here. I think we're going to see him just kind of be the smarter fighter in this one. Use his footwork, use his range, and he's going to hit and not get hit against Pedro Munoz, and that's going to be the game plan. So I got Aiemann Zahabi by decision here. I think that's a pretty decent pick there. So moving on up. Oh, no, that's still the fucking prelims. Okay, so now we got the main card. Mike Malott versus Trevin Giles. These two actually grappled against each other. Mike Malott won. I'm going to go Mike Malott, but I'm not too confident in him. I'm not really sold on his striking completely. I think his striking's a bit sloppy. He's a bit stiff, and also he does slow down a bit in fights. He is a very good grappler, Mike Malott. I'll give him that. He's a good grappler. He is coming off that loss to Neil Magny where he was a big favorite going into the fight, and he was actually dominating the fight pretty much until the last like 30 to 20 seconds where he fucked up and got reversed, and then Neil Magny got on top in mount and just ended up getting a TKO in a fight where Mike Malott was completely dominating start to right before the finish of it. So, yeah, Trevin Giles, I feel like on the feet actually might be the better striker. He is a bit chinny himself these days. You know, he's been in some wars. He's fought some pretty good people, Trevin Giles has. But I don't know, man. I feel like Mike Malott's going to be able to get to his grappling here and probably end up getting a... I guess it's going to be another fucking decision, man. I hope he could submit him. I don't know if I see it happening. Either Mike Malott by decision or submission is going to be the pick here. Probably a decision. Did he submit him in the grappling match, or was that points? Let me check. No, so he beat him by points. So yeah, man, I'm gonna go Mike Malott by decision here, by basically just being the better grappler. Although I am gonna be a bit worried on the feet because I do think Trevin Giles has some potential on the feet. He is explosive. He does have punching power, and I could see him fucking knocking Mike Malott out if Mike Malott gets a little too loose on the feet. So, but I am going to go with Mike Malott here by decision, just by being the better grappler. So moving on up, we have Marc-Andre Barriault versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm going Marc-Andre Barriault here. And you know what? I'm going to pick him by TKO. Here's my first finish of the card here. Really, if you just look at both these guys' records, both guys have struggled against the upper echelon competition. It's just that Marc-Andre Barriault seems to do a little bit better. Like if you watch the Chris Curtis fight, that was actually kind of a competitive fight. But when you look at Dustin Stoltzfus, he's kind of just getting annihilated by the better guys. And while he did look a little bit better in his last couple of fights from a technical perspective, even in his loss against Bruno Ferreira, I'm gonna go Marc-Andre Barriault. I think that the pace, the power, also the size. I think he seems like he's bigger when you watch him fight, like in the cage. So I'm gonna go with Marc-Andre Barriault. I think the pace is gonna really break down Dustin Stoltzfus, and I think that we're gonna see a TKO here for Marc-Andre Barriault. And I'm gonna go probably late second round, maybe third round TKO. So moving on up, we have Cal Machado versus Brinson Ribeiro, or Chiao. I don't know how they pronounce it. I don't think it's the same as like Cal Barajo. I think it's like Chiao or some shit. Versus Brinson Ribeiro. I'm going Brinson Ribeiro on this one. I think that he's the better striker. I think he has some explosive striking ability. And while he hasn't really looked good in the UFC, neither of these guys have, I just feel like he has a little more potential. So I'm going to go Brinson Ribeiro by... I'm going to go TKO. I think he's going to be able to get Machado out of there. So I'm going to go Brinson Ribeiro by TKO. I don't know if he's the underdog or not. I don't know if the UFC website says. Let me check. He is the underdog. He's plus 136. So I'm going Brinson Ribeiro by finish, by TKO on this one. I don't know, man. Machado has not looked that good. He was fighting at heavyweight. This is going to be 205, I believe. Is this 205 or is this fucking heavyweight? It's 205. All right, so yeah, I'm going Brinson Ribeiro by TKO on this one. I think he's the better striker. I think he's more explosive, and I think we're going to see him get his first UFC win. And is this his first? Would this be his first? Let me check. I think he's 0-2 in the UFC. He is. So he won on the Contender Series, and then he lost to Mingyang Zhang, and then he lost to Magomed Gatsila by majority decision. So yeah, if he wins, this would be his first UFC win, and I'm going to go with it. So I'm going Brinson Ribeiro by TKO on this one. So moving on up to this is not the co-main event. All right, so Derek Lewis versus Jonata Diniz. If this fight stays on the feet, I would absolutely favor Jonata Diniz. He is a kickboxer, and I do believe he's more technical than Derek Lewis. And if you actually look at Derek Lewis's record, most of his losses are to strikers. You would think that most of his losses would be to grapplers, but that's actually not the case. If you look at Derek Lewis's record, the only grapplers that he really lost to would be Almeida, Spivak, he did lose to Spivak, and then DC. That's about it. Everyone else that he lost to was a striker. Pavlovich, Tuivasa, Gane, JDS, Mark Hunt, Sean Jordan, Mitrione, all finished him, on the feet. So Derek Lewis obviously does have insane power, and if he lands on anyone, he can just fucking flatline you, and that's kind of why it's hard to pick Derek Lewis fights, is because no matter the skill gap or the skill difference, Derek Lewis is skilled enough that he can land one shot. But the thing is that he has the kind of power where all he really needs to do is land one shot. So he could be getting his ass kicked and then just fucking basically kill you out of nowhere with one shot. And that's kind of why it's hard to pick Derek Lewis fights, is because on paper, right, Anthony Smith, on paper, he's really probably the worst fighter in most of his matchups if you were to break it down skill for skill. But yet he's one of the more, successful heavyweights in the last decade in the UFC, and the most KOs as well in the entire UFC. I believe he still has that record. That being said, I'm picking Derek Lewis. The reason I'm picking Derek Lewis is because Derek Lewis actually has somewhat of an underrated ability to get takedowns on other heavyweights. If you look at, Derek Lewis's fights, he has gotten takedowns over some guys. And when I watched Carl Williams, who got cut, by the way, for losing to Jonathan Deniz, I have a whole theory about that, but I'll save that for another video. But anyways, Carl Williams was able to take down Jonathan Deniz in the third round when he actually tried to take him down. He took him down pretty easily and then controlled him pretty easily on the ground. Jonathan did not have any answer to get back up to his feet at all. That was pretty clear. And I feel like Derek Lewis would be really smart to look for a takedown against Jonathan, because I feel like if Derek Lewis can get on top, he can honestly get a pretty easy TKO here, man. I just don't see Jonathan Deniz being able to get back up from Derek Lewis. So I actually am going to pick Derek Lewis. I think we're actually going to see him get a takedown in this fight and use his ground and pound and get a TKO victory. Because on the feet, while Lewis absolutely has a chance to just flatline Deniz 100% on the feet, I feel like if he's trying to strike with him, he's kind of just gambling. I feel like Derek Lewis is the better grappler, is more dangerous if he can get on top. And I think that's what he should try to do in this fight, and I think that's what he will do in this fight at some point. Even if they strike at first, if Janata clips Derek Lewis with something that hurts him that he doesn't like, I think that we'll see a takedown. So I'm going to go Derek Lewis by TKO, KO, ground and pound at some point in this fight. Maybe first round, maybe second round. But I will say this, if this fight stays on the feet for a prolonged period of time, I do believe Jonathan Deniz is going to win. He'll probably end up TKOing Derek Lewis if it stays on the feet for a prolonged period of time and turns into a striking match. But I am going to go Derek Lewis. I do think he's going to be able to get the takedown and get the ground and pound and get the TKO on this one. So moving on up to the co-main event, we have Erin Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Now let me double check. I believe this is a 5-round fight. Let me double check. According to Tapology, it is a 5-round fight. According to Tapology. So I'm assuming that's correct. I'm going to go Rose Namajunas. I think it's going to be a close fight. But I think the biggest difference here is going to be the footwork. Erin Blanchfield does not really move her feet that well. She's kind of stationary. She's very, stuttery and stiff in her footwork and her movement. She's very forward or backwards, not really left or right. She can't really cut angles all that well. And she's just not that good of a striker in general. She is a very good grappler. I'll give her that. She is a very good grappler, but I feel like Rose has good enough grappling to be able to defend if she does get taken down. And then on the feet, I think that's the big difference, is I think Rose is just a better striker with a better footwork. And I see Rose just dancing around her, avoiding any opportunities for Erin Blanchfield to get a takedown or get a clinch, and just kind of pick her apart with her boxing, with her jab, her combinations, her kicks. And I think we're going to see Rose Namajunas get a decision here. The only other outcome I could see is if Blanchfield does end up getting a takedown and then getting her back, I could see Blanchfield getting a submission, rear naked choke, but I don't see that happening. I think Namajunas is going to be the smarter fighter here, the more technical fighter, and I think the footwork here is going to be the big difference. I think Rose Namajunas just has way better footwork. I think it's going to be really hard for Erin Blanchfield to really track her down, to be able to get a hold of her, to even initiate the grappling to begin with. So I'm going with Rose Namajunas by decision here, with the better game planning and just being the more well-rounded fighter here. So moving on up to the main event, we got Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Amir Albazi has been inactive. He's been out for a while. His last fight was against Kai Kara-France. It was a bit of a controversial decision. Some people thought Kai should have won. Amir Albazi also has, I believe he had a pretty significant injury, like before this, like leading into the fight, and the reason why he was out for a while. I think it had something to do with his neck. And apparently it was pretty fucking bad, like almost had to retire bad. So that's not a good look. Brandon Moreno, he also took a little bit of a break. I like Moreno in this one. I just Amir Albazi, he's got good wrestling. He can strike a bit, but I don't know, man, especially with this time off and that injury. I think Moreno's a really hard fight for him to come back to in a 5-rounder. And I'm going to go Brandon Moreno I'm going to go submission. I think he's going to be able to submit Amir Albazi. I think he's going to wear him out a bit on the feet. He might get taken down. He might have to scramble back up to his feet. But eventually, I do think Moreno's going to be able to find his back at some point and get a rear naked choke as Amir starts to fatigue a bit. And I'm going to go Moreno by submission here. I think he's going to be able to get the submission here, probably in like the 4th round, maybe even 5th round. But I do think he's going to wear down Amir Albazi and end up getting the submission here. Tough fight for Amir Albazi to come back to, but at 125, especially with his record, there's no other option. It's going to be like Moreno or a fucking title shot, so they gave him Moreno. So, I'm going to go Brandon Moreno here. And let's just look through these picks. Let's see how many underdogs and how many favorites I have. So I have Petrovic. She's plus 170. I'm taking her. Then I have... Who else is an underdog? Let's see. Shit. Is that it? No, I have Brinson Ribeiro, so that's 2. Derek Lewis, that's 3. I'm surprised Derek Lewis is an underdog. Rose is an underdog, too. Wow. So, yeah, I have Rose. Yeah, so wow. I'm actually really surprised Derek Lewis and Rose Namajunas are underdogs. I'm really, really surprised at that. But yeah, so I have a few underdogs in there. But yeah, this is the breakdown for Fight Night Moreno versus Amir Albazi. I probably won't be doing a postcard breakdown for this. We'll see. I'll be at the coast, so we'll see. It could be maybe like a Tuesday that if I really feel like it's necessary to do a postcard breakdown for this event. Probably fucking not. But anyways, yeah, you guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.